Yes.
Well, hello. Thank you for tuning in to episode 6 of Retro Rewind.
Look at that.
How is
We
everybody doing?
got the king of content here with us.
God, you guys are at 6 episodes already? It seems like yesterday I was back here.
Absolutely. And it seems we do have a guest host, which would be Ryzak. How are you doing, Ryzak?
Fantastic, guys. I hope you are. I haven't seen you all today. It's been
I haven't seen you. Nope.
All right. Well, I am one of your hosts, William. We have Jeff Janak, and we have Ray 3473. How are you guys doing?
Doing great, man. It's a sunny, hot day out here in California.
Absolutely.
Cool and rainy, but I was still out on the lake paddling this morning, which is why I was not watching any of Ryzak's streams, unfortunately.
Well, if you were like Anthony, you would have been at the lake with your phone watching me, so I don't know what your excuse is.
I did have my phone with me, but I guess I could have fired it up.
It's ridiculous.
All right. Well,
he passed out, slept.
I know I passed out last night, as a matter of fact. But this is not about sleeping. We have a couple of great guests with us today, and I'd like to go ahead and bring them out right now. We have Hell Monkey.
Hello, everybody. Thank you.
Hell Monkey.
And we also have with us today an indie game developer who's been working on a project, and his name is Chris Mango. How are you doing, Chris?
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Hey.
Absolutely. So starting with you, Hell Monkey, let's pretend nobody knows who you are. I think people do, but go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi guys, thank you very much for having us, William, again. Just I do a little bit of news content, a little bit of gameplay content in the cloud gaming department, solely focused on the cloud gaming. Yeah, and other than that, I just love gaming. Been gaming for as long as I can remember, bar a short stint a couple of years ago. Yeah, I love everything. And thank you very much for having me on. I love the show.
Oh, no problem, man. Yeah, we're all big cloud gaming fans here. I don't know about Chris, but all the rest of us here are. So, Chris, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your background?
Yeah, sure. So I come from an education background. I'm actually a teacher and a tutor. I've been doing that for a long time, and I've been gaming forever. And I decided to finally kind of venture on this passion project of mine to start creating this RPG, which is one of my two favorite genres of games. And just kind of the game development process in terms of what I'd like to see in an RPG and how I can actually use my educational perspective as a teacher and a tutor in terms of how to get players to do the problem solving and the puzzles and the critical thinking and the analysis. The things I like to elicit as a teacher and put that into the game too, because some of my favorite games are the ones that force you to think critically, where you don't just do the formulaic, all right, plug in, just do the same thing over and over again until the game ends and then you move on. So those types of things too have kind of shaped my perspective.
Right on. Well, jumping, we're going to go all the way around, but jumping with you, Hell Monkey, real quick. What got you into gaming? What's the first game that kind of grabbed your attention and kind of paved the way for where you're at now?
The first game I remember playing was Super Mario, on the old SNES. That was my first experience of gaming, and probably one of the best. One of those ones that you wish you could, live over. I hadn't, just because of my age. I had never played anything until Super Mario, and that was just ahead of its time, and it was so good. And look at where it is now as a franchise. Who would have thought? Have thought?
Yeah, I would say Mario is almost more like the image of Mario can be, no matter where you're at on the planet, somebody will point and go Mario,
Yeah, it's kind of cliche to say Mario, but that is genuinely the first video game I ever played. And funnily enough, it was at a time when there was, there was newer consoles out. I was just stuck behind a few generations for quite a few years. So while people were playing newer games, I was still slogging away on Mario, man. I would not give that game up. I didn't want to know anything else.
Well, something that's interesting is they definitely had a classic on their hands, and they did something that was unheard of, which is pack it in the box with the system. So everybody got Mario and Duck Hunt, but that was fantastic. How about you, Chris? What was the first game that grabbed you?
So my mom grew up playing the Atari 2600. So when I, as for as long as I can remember, she had her Atari. And even though my older cousins got the NES and SNES, my first console was the N64, really. But playing the Atari games with my mom was just great. She had like 50 of them. She would tell me that, if she gets, I guess there were catalogs or instruction booklets where, if you get a high score in games like Kaboom or River Raid or Mega Mania, you can take a snapshot and they'll give you a shirt or something. So I just remember playing those games with my mom back in the day when it was just like one joystick and one button. And like you could have dozens and dozens and dozens of games with something that simple, which, obviously things have gotten a lot more complicated with the controllers. But those are my first memories of video games, the old school Atari 2600s.
And oh boy, what they could get done with just a single joystick and a button.
Yeah.
Like all their games worked with that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so funny. Real quick, Chris, what got you into game development? I realize that you're an indie dev and you're currently working on a project, but what got your foot in the door of programming or game creation?
Yeah, so it was just a matter of being like a lifelong gamer, and just the more games I play, the more I'd be really appreciative of, just the work that takes going into them. And then with the conversations about, maybe some RPGs back in the day where, had kind of this typical formula where they would just, they knew what buttons to press to make sure you build a successful RPG. And then I had some RPGs that I liked growing up that some of them fit the typical mold of what you think of as an RPG, like a Final Fantasy VII, and then some that broke a lot of the rules, sometimes to the benefit of the game, and sometimes, they end up just being guilty pleasures and don't get the highest criticism. But the more games I played, it was just more of thinking about how it would just be really cool if I ever had the time to create a little passion project of mine too. And fortunately for the past year and a half, I mean, there aren't that many silver linings of coronavirus, but kind of being stuck at home and looking for an outlet to get more creative and things like that. Like I happen to have a little bit, it ended up being a lot of time to really kind of buckle down and finally do this thing that was kind of in the making for at least a decade or so of me just kind of brainstorming things.
So you had this project. I'm going to go ahead and bring it up here real quick.
Sure.
So you've had this project that you've been working on in your head for a decade.
Yeah, I've been writing. Well, I've been writing down notes, and I've had documents and spreadsheets about what I would like to see in a hypothetical game. I ended up leaning towards the RPG setup just because that's one of my two favorite genres, and it was a little bit simpler for me to get into. I think it kind of was a better synthesis of the ideas I had floating around in my head, pulling from a bunch of different RPGs I've played in the past. And I was finally able to kind of put it, from paper onto, I'm using the RPG Maker MV game engine, and it's very user friendly. I am not a computer programmer. I'm not a coder. I don't come from that background. So I tinkered with a few little things from Game Maker Studio and RPG Maker, and this just really fit the mold of what I was looking for. And it was just really nice to see kind of the ideas that were swirling in my head kind of come to life a little bit.
Right on. Scrolling down here, it's the title of the game is Mango Mischief. Is that correct?
Yeah. It happens to also be my last name. That's intended, but it's mangoes end up being a key item in the game too. So it's not just for my own self-aggrandizing.
Right on. We have a comment here. It says, game development is an interesting experience. Currently working on my first game in Unreal with a small team. It's been a new experience for me. I am so far from coding and even making games. Maybe I could use, one of the programs that you mentioned, Chris, but I am not a coder in any way at all. But this game does look fantastic to me for a few of the reasons. You don't take the game super serious in the sense that you like to play with tropes. Could you explain that to the audience a little bit? Yeah.
So kind of referring back to the formulas, when you think of what's in a stereotypical RPG, or what are the potentially overused storylines, right? You've got someone's hometown is burning to the ground and it's time to wake up the eventual hero of the game. And then it's, all right, let's talk about the childhood friend, which of course will be another character. And then there's a girl who's secretly a princess. And there's all of these things that kind of fit this mold, and it's worked for a very long time. And some of those I totally use and abuse in a sort of a comical way also. But it's just kind of picking apart in an attempt at humorously kind of conveying these things and the things you kind of take for granted when you're playing a game. So as you're scrolling through, I mean, there are a couple of times where you try to enter a room and it's just like, you know, maybe you can't actually enter the room because even NPCs need their own privacy. So it kind of calls out and just does a bunch of those fourth wall breaks, like how you never, ever, ever see a bathroom in these types of games, right? And, you know, I explain how it's, you know, it's because all characters learn bladder control at level 0. So that's why you never actually have to see one, right? So it gives these sorts of like humorous excuses. And I try to kind of call out some of the tried and true tropes of the game too. And it's an interesting balance that I'm trying to play with because some of them, you know, I end up using and I try to acknowledge that too, because a lot of them are really, really, really good, or else they wouldn't be in dozens of or hundreds of RPGs. But some of them I kind of call out as being potentially a little disingenuous or just having some fun. Like, you know, you walk into a house because you want to talk to everyone and gain, you know, you want to get an experience and you want to learn more about your world. And some people just call you out on the fact that you just broke into their house. And what are you doing? This is my bedroom. I have no idea who you 4 random people are. And there'll be a little dialogue where, you know, your characters might say something like, oh, usually when we do this, it's not that big of a deal. Is there anything you can do to help us on our quest? And it's like, the world doesn't revolve around you. So a little bit of like self-awareness and NPCs kind of calling you out on the stuff you typically take for granted. So I kind of wanted to put that little spin on it too.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm checking out. Everybody's checking out your game here for a second, at least a fight, and I really enjoy the art. What made you choose the art you did? Are these assets that you had to license, or how did you actually construct the game? If you can answer.
Yeah. So one of the nice things about the RPG Maker forums is that there's a ton of people developing and playing and people willing to help you write music and help you create assets and the sprites and all of those things too. The monsters you're looking at right now aren't the default ones, but you know there's tons of people who'll put free content out or just content that you can pay a little money and they're totally fine with using it for like commercial products and stuff. So you know I'm definitely crediting all of the kind of outsourcing that I kind of do there. But yeah, I like the little bit of a cartoony feel. I like, you know, the animations that I created and the maps there too. I kind of like the pixel art setup. It brings me back to the retro times of like 16-bit graphics where things were a little bit simpler. Yeah, I think it fits the way I had imagined it would be. And it happens to work well because, again, you know, not being a computer programmer, I don't have the capacity nor the time to really do this sort of, you know, a huge 3D, super realistic, lifelike modeling. But I like it to be these kind of bold and dynamic characters and things like that. Actually, the picture you're looking at right now with the 4 big, there will be a running joke, spoiler alert, about how so many of the monsters are just way bigger than the characters who you are. And that's just like a common theme too, where, you know, you've got the same battlers over and over again and you already know what you look like, but there's these so many larger sprites in general that the monsters have. And so just kind of calling out these inconsistencies that you kind of take for granted. And dogs can talk. So
yeah,
that is a good thing too.
Wait a second, they can't in real life? No?
Yeah.
Might talk to me.
Yeah.
But I'm loving the tropes, you know, in almost every one of these games, they play off of the hero's journey or, you know, similar things. And to poke fun at that stuff, I think is pretty amazing.
There's some crazy health points.
Yeah. I was
yeah.
actually watching one of the battles, and there's a lot of stuff going on. I'm familiar with RPGs and stuff. But it looks very interesting. I can't wait to play it. If anybody is interested in helping with the Kickstarter or anything, I can of course put links in the description of the video. But go ahead and tell people where they can support you.
Yeah, so the primary website, which will be around long after the Kickstarter is finished, the primary website is mangomischief.com. So just everything is front loaded there. Obviously, my Kickstarter is still running for looks like 11 more days right now. Just hit the goal, which is great. So I get that kind of energy moving forwards. I'm kind of riding high on that. But there's still plenty of opportunities for the pledge rewards, whether it's getting the regular game, which will be released on Steam, as well as some other online shops. There's beta testing options based on the pledge. There's I'm putting together a little development /art book that'll be sent out online also. There's also, if you want to create your own NPC for my game, that's available. Or yeah, I think it'd be pretty cool. And a few of my pledgers already have taken me up on that, which is nice. And then kind of the highest tier is creating monsters, because the NPCs are cool. We get to create the sprites together and talk about the dialogue, like what town are they going to be in? What are we going to talk about? And then the monster is kind of this whole other beast, pun intended, where it's, you know, it's one thing to say I want a dragon, but like, let's come up with the colors of the dragons and everything else. And it's another thing to say, you know, I want it to shoot a fireball, versus, all right, we have to create the animations for the fireball. We need to know, you know, what are the stats of your monster. We have to make sure it's at least reasonably balanced too. Like, where are we going to experience this monster? What kind of elemental strengths and weaknesses is it going to have? You know, all of the different moves and skills and animations. That takes more time. So that's kind of the highest pledge level. But yeah, mangomischief.com. I've got the Kickstarter there for Mango Mischief. On Twitter, I'm at Mango Mischief. And I think the Instagram is Mango Mischief Video Game. But all of that, if you just go to the website, I think it's pretty user-friendly to kind of navigate.
Awesome.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. I've got a question, if you don't mind, real quick,
go ahead.
William. So I was asking you a little bit before about your idea for using Kickstarter, right? I think it's fantastic that you created tiers so that you can include supporters in the creation of your game. Was that an idea that you picked up from somebody else, or was that you just naturally wanting people to join in on the fun?
Yeah, so when I did a little bit of research into like what makes a good Kickstarter campaign, one of the most important things was having lots of tiers. So there's different entry points for different people. The customize or create your own character or monster for my game was primarily me, because I appreciate having the independence and freedom to do these types of things, and I'm more than happy to kind of share a little bit of my game in that sort of way also. So there were a bunch of people who reached out to me and were like, you know, it'd be really cool. I've always been wanting, you know, I don't have the time or anything to make my own game, but it'd be really cool if I could inject a little bit of myself. You know, I could put myself in the game as an NPC, or my mortal enemy in the game as an NPC, and we'll have them do some silly stuff, or a monster or something. So just a little bit of like, cool, that's a cool concept. You know, there's tons of different options, and, you know, in terms of where to place these characters and monsters. And I thought it'd be a kind of a cool way to kind of make connections too. Yeah.
I think it works. I think it totally works. And I'd love to see more people follow that trend, because it engages your community and it gets people excited to have a piece of that with you. Right. So I think it's fantastic. That's why I wanted to ask. So,
yeah. Yeah, if I can make, because I know based on the way it's working, you know, I'm smiling the entire time I'm developing it, and if I can make some other people smile in the process, just happy, whether it's they're enjoying playing the game or just like, hey, that's my character right there. That's my monster, the one who you're killing right now. Yeah, that's a little bit of me. So I kind of appreciate that, and if I can kind of spread that a little bit, you know, I think it's a net good.
That's cool.
Absolutely. So back to you, Hell Monkey, real quick. What is your favorite RPG, if you have one? Maybe RPGs aren't your thing, but
that's a question I probably couldn't answer. Okay. In fact, I'll tell you what my favorite RPG is of, you know, more recent times would be a little game called Buddy Simulator. You should definitely check this out. It's a really short game. It's reasonably priced on Steam, and it's, you know, it resembles the old 16-bit graphics, and it just took me so far back into my childhood, and it's just a fantastic. It sort of gets more, the graphics get more newer as the game goes on, but you start way back at, you know, 2D block pixel graphics, and it's such a great time I had playing that game. So that would be my most favorite right now, because I can't choose anything else.
And what was the title called?
Buddy Simulator. Yeah. You actually start like it's like an old typing game. So you have to type like go north, go west, you know, and then it comes on in the graphical sense. It's but the storyline's fantastic as well. So check that out for sure if you can.
Yeah. Maker of Chaos says, Hell Monkey, what about NIER? Nier?
Nier. Yeah, you know, I love Nier games, but it's hard to choose. I can't pick one game. It'd be like picking between children, you know, your children sort of thing. I couldn't do that. There's too many good ones.
Right on. All right, we're going to go around now. Ryzak, what is your favorite RPG?
You asked me this question earlier, and I know you got me set up here. I will agree with Hill Monkey in a sense that it's very, very hard to pick just one. There's just so many different RPGs out there, and there's different ways to like them. My favorite RPG ever, if I had to strike it down to just one, is probably Xenogears. It was an old PlayStation game. I think one of the greatest games of all time is World of Warcraft, although it ruins lives. I've said that on stream before. Just from the amount of attention and detail that they pay to the game, right? I mean, that game has been going on for 20 years or so, and people pay $15 a month to play it. There's over like 10 million people that play it. It's crazy. But Xenogears really, it captured me because you get kind of introduced to the mech warrior kind of world, and you have these big ships that you were flying on from place to place, and the storyline, the anime, art was just beautiful. This game just really sucked me in. It kind of had that Final Fantasy feel, but it was more, I don't know, I guess more modern. So Xenogears definitely for me was one of those games that was very hard for me to put down. I played this through several times.
Right on. I have never played this one. This is something that just went under my radar, I guess. How long was the game, do you think, to complete?
It was probably in that 40 to 50 hour range. If you really took your time and did a lot of the side story stuff. There was a way that you could build up your characters and your mechs, and you could add stuff to them. The person to really talk about this game with is Dr. Spaceman. Dr. Spaceman and I could probably talk about this game for a long time. And this is a part of a whole series, the Xenogear world, and I didn't know that until later in life because I wasn't really big on the anime scene. I actually got turned on to this game by somebody that was much younger than me. It was probably like my senior year of high school, so I was a little late to it. But it's just very fun. And to Chris's point of when he was saying earlier, building an RPG, like there's several things that go into RPGs. I mean, look at these hit numbers. I mean, these hit numbers are crazy. And you have magic, and you have attack, and you have defend and flee and items, and so there's a certain system that you continue to use with these. But I think being that teenage kid when I was playing this, the mech warrior, introducing the mech warrior into the RPG was really cool for me. I think that's probably why I gravitated to it the most. And you see, you can move around. It kind of had like an open world feel a little bit because you could move around even though it wasn't open world.
Right on. Chris, I have one question for you. In your RPG, how do you determine hit rates or hit chances? Because why I ask that is I've been playing Baldur's Gate 3 quite a bit, and they have a dice system that goes on behind the scenes that determines if you hit or how well you hit. Is any of that going on behind the scenes in your game, or is it strictly numbers? How do you do that?
So it's a lot of settings with numbers, not dice rolls per se, but for each skill, for each attack that either you'll use or the monsters will use, there's essentially a set hit rate, which can be modified by a bunch of different things. So obviously there's a bunch of status effects. So like if you're blinded, you're more likely to miss, things like that too. I was tinkering with exactly what to make the hit rates. And I've learned that it tends to be better to have it be on the higher side than the lower side. So with the typical attacks, it's usually something like 90-95% hit, unless they've got like a very high agility. There's a couple other factors that go into something like that. But based on the types of skills, there are riskier skills. So like you can do more damage if you're willing to do a little bit more of a coin flip, or you can like play it safe and have like a hit that's guaranteed to work if you're willing to deal a little bit less damage. There's other hits right too that I didn't even consider. Things like when you want to use an item or something. Like even if you're blinded, you still want to make sure the item works because it might just be like healing your blindness or something like that also. So, different hit rates for things like if you're going to buff your characters or debuff the monsters might be, basically 100% compared to actually dealing damage, because I definitely want to make sure that the players aren't just doing like the one attack that just deals a lot of damage and kind of tinkering and feeling out, okay, well, if I combine that with raising my attack first and lowering the monster's defense, like now all of a sudden I can do like a ton more damage. So just the way that everything kind of gets set up when you have a bunch of different skills, I want to make sure they're all as attractive as possible. Because
a lot of balancing, I'm sure, a balancing act.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. For me, a lot of the RPGs back in the day was like, all right, which is the attack that does the most damage? That's the one attack I'm using until I'm forced to think outside the box. And so like having the flexibility and kind of front loading the thinking outside the box ahead of time, I think makes things a little bit more versatile and adds for a little bit more play styles too, which is nice.
With Xenogears there, you're used to hit points and you're used to magic points. The one thing that they brought into that game, I'm not sure what game started it, but they brought in action points. So you would build up AP to where you could use like 3 or 2 or 1 on different attacks. So you had to build up to use that big attack. And I think that made the fighting and the gameplay a little bit interesting too, because like to your point, you couldn't just use the same one all the time. Oh, this one's the massive, hitbox one. You had to pick and choose, then you had to build it up, and you could take it battle to battle. So
I think some of my favorite newer JRPGs like Octopath Traveler and Bravely Default 2 have the same thing with like BP, like Brave Points and stuff. Like my game has, besides the typical HP and MP, it has technical points, TP, which again you can use to do particularly strong attacks or particularly useful in certain circumstances, just to kind of mix things up a little bit and not just have it be just based on the magic. So just having a little bit more flexibility I've found to be useful, because people who have been friends and other people who've been kind of alpha testing the game were just like, I would have never thought to use this, or I actually don't use this at all, so maybe you should take another look at that. So just the feedback, all feedback that I get is just super helpful.
How about you, Ray? What's your most favorite RPG, sir?
Oh man, I love me some Van Zandu. And it's weird because the way how the name looks with the X, but it's really a Z. But man, come on, this game was a platform, it was a side scroller, it was RPG, and it was back in medieval time. This character didn't even have a name. But what happens is he goes back to his hometown, and the Elf King says, look, man, the water's been poisoned. I'm going to give you this gold to start you off, and you got to find out what the hell's going on. So there's all these weird creatures. You would stab them with like a knife, like if you were in Zelda. And but God, this game just I have like, I don't know, it's something about this game, it just took me away, and reminded me of Zelda, it reminded me of Final Fantasy, the older style of RPG. But I really like this game. I had a lot of fun and hours put in this game, and it was cool. You would meet a guru and he would give you like all these different types of powers. And one of my favorite powers was like the flying boot. So you could fly. I don't know if you guys remember Kid Icarus. You would put the flying boots on and fly in the air. And then it was like you could be a superhero, you could be a warrior, you could be all these different types. But really awesome side-scrolling RPG. And you were fighting dwarves.
Hey, that guy's smoking in a Nintendo game.
Yes, he is.
See him puffing away on that
That's
thing.
right.
I feel like there was only ever one guy that made the graphics for all of these games in the 80s, because the chat boxes, the bricks, everything.
Those little horny little things on the ground. Oh my God, they drove me crazy.
Oh, the shells?
Yeah,
back and forth?
They drove me crazy.
And the start screen. When you were at the start screen, I feel like all the start screens were the same.
Yeah, I heard there was 4 major dungeons in this title, and that the back half of the game was a little weak, but the first 2 dungeons were like pretty elaborate.
Right. Yeah, man, this game, 1989 by Hudson Soft. This game was part of the Dragon Slayer, and it's actually, the name is like, it has something to do with the old Japanese system Valucom and Dragon Slayer. I don't know. They mashed it together.
See, that is why I never made it anywhere in this game. They give you an allowance to go buy stuff. I think I bought all potions. I didn't even buy a weapon.
Yeah.
I think I was a kid. I didn't know how to play this game.
I did half and half. But you know what? This game is also, guys, if you get the little miniature Nintendo with all the games loaded on it, this is one of the games that's on it.
Oh, on that the little retro console thing.
Yeah, it's somewhere behind here, but yeah, it's loaded on there.
That's awesome.
But
yeah, it looks like an interesting game. And one of the clips that I watched when you mentioned the game, somebody was literally flying across the screen up to a ladder.
Yeah,
with those boots.
You can get a martial arts lessons too in medieval time and learn how to do kung fu.
So in this game, you had to, people have liked this game for so long. People have gone back and have reworked some of the stuff, like how your inventory works.
Yeah.
Like as an example, I think you can change your weapons, but when you get like an upgraded piece of armor, the old armor you can't equip anymore. Somebody went back through and changed the menu so that you could have any kind of combination of armor and weapon, and real interesting stuff. It's got to be a good game for somebody to go back and rework that stuff, you know.
So say because you have there's a nostalgic vibe of this game for you, and it speaks to you. Could you see this made as a new game with today's graphics?
Oh, I think that would be awesome. But almost every game like this would have to go through the open world.
Yeah, it would.
You know, disaster. Sometimes some games are really good with open worlds, and other games, are better.
Like, would you be excited for that, Ray? Like, if you found out that this game was being released like next year as like a next gen game, would that excite you?
I love all types of RPG. If it's old, new, or whatever, I will play it. Okay.
No, I just mean from the fact that you loved this game like the way it was, right? So would you want to see it new? Yeah,
definitely. You know, I would love to see that. You know, the only thing, man, was some of the colors in the game and some of the monsters. You know, but I mean, like this background right here.
Yeah, it definitely looks a lot like Zelda 2, A Link to the Past, I think it's called. No, it's not
the Adventures of Link, the side one. Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah,
A Link to the Past was on a handheld, wasn't it?
Look at Bobo sitting on the chair with his legs crossed.
Yeah. I just can't believe the smoking. It did a close up, and the dude was literally puffing, man.
Hey, they were smoking back in the medieval times, man. You know, I wish, it needs some crisp mango love, Dan, with the colors.
Yes.
It needs like just brighten it and make it look beautiful. That's what it needs. It needs some crisp mango love on it.
Oh, you got to remember that technology didn't exist back in the day. Back in the 80s, Ryzak commented on what it looked like. You had to program all that, right?
Yeah.
Now there are, objects you can just drop in, and it's so much easier now. But back in the days, some guy actually or lady had to sit there and program. They had to, each pixel they had to turn on and off, right? So once you had something, it was easy just to copy and port it. That's why they all look the same.
That's what I say. There's a lot of copying of code, right?
But these games, though, man, they captured my imagination when I was young. Okay, even no matter how, like now I look at it, I was like, oh my god, man, I was jumping over a turtle with horns. But back then, it was awesome to me. Just awesome.
Oh, agreed.
It's very hard to go back and revisit like a movie that you really loved as a kid, because most of the time it doesn't hold up. But at the time all these games came out, it was pushing the envelope, and I was so excited to have them at my fingertips,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So much. How about you, Jeff?
I was going to say, people like to compare, current stuff with older stuff. You just can't do that. People like, you just can't. You can't. It's not, and they do it not in just video games, but they talk on TV shows or, game shows or whatever. It's just, the graphics aren't as good. But back in the day, I think my game that I'm choosing is Diablo.
Oh my god!
Yes.
Wait, Diablo 1 or Diablo 2, or because I was going to pick Diablo 2, but we can talk about.
I was going to say the whole series, to be honest, the whole right. Because I think if I remember correctly, and this is going back to the late '90s, and my brain is just all fuzzy. I think I had it first for the PC, and then I got it for when I got my PlayStation 1. I think because then once it was on the PlayStation 1, I could plug it into my TV, whereas on it was on my old PC. I just had to sit there and play it. But I think then I was able, once I got it on the PlayStation, I was able to move it into like the living room where I had my old Mitsubishi, more green than anything else, color television. But yeah, Diablo. It had an online component. It had.
What was the story?
Sorry.
What was the story?
Well, it also had there was multiple stories, right? Because you had 3 different classes. You had the warrior, the rogue, and the sorcerer, right? Mm-hmm. And so then each of them had different abilities and different things, and so you could play as any one of those. And so when you finish with one, you just play as the other, and you just kind of keep going through, right? So yeah, it was. It had an online component. Although I think, and correct me where I'm wrong, this may have been one of the first games that there were cheaters and hacking up the game and stuff. Right now on they're everywhere, right? But
yeah,
I think
is this one of the first games that had an online marketplace as well, or is that Diablo 2?
I think it was mostly Diablo 2. I never played the Diablo 1 multiplayer, but there were tons of modded things in that game. Diablo 2 had, and obviously Diablo 3. Diablo 2 had a ton of trading posts in places where you could swap gear and stuff. Yeah.
When you say was it one? Was it the first one? That's where I was questioning, right? Lots back in, lots of stuff was sort of being invented at the time, right? So, and if I remember correctly, I think. Some buddies of mine, I think we all brought our we didn't have laptops back then, so we brought all our computers into the same room, and I think we direct connected them. And played this together.
Yes.
But again, that's lugging computers around. Like that's
people would do it.
Jeff, can I ask you this? Because I had this. Did you have the Diablo big box set with the first, the 2, and the expansion?
The battle chest. The battle chest.
I got the battle chest. It's in the closet. Oh my god. I love Diablo, man. Love Diablo.
Yeah. This was when I was kind of wondering. I was wavering between several games, and I just had to settle on this one, because and maybe we'll see Diablo 4.
Well, they got the remaster coming out.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and they have the online one coming.
Yes,
the mobile one. I'm sorry.
My buddy here, Brad Towell, he used to build and do the grinding for you. He would build a character and then end up selling it on the marketplace or selling it outside the marketplace for somebody that didn't want to grind for all the stuff. Yeah, because they used to have mule accounts, and I'm going to have him on eventually to discuss the marketplace and stuff for Diablo 2, but it's just a very fascinating thing for the marketplace and for Diablo. As an example, Fallout 76, got a lot of hate, it didn't launch very well, but they did have a marketplace outside of their game to where you could go buy their currency in game that wasn't connected to the actual developers, and you could also buy weapons and bring them into the game without having to actually go find the weapons. It's just that kind of stuff I find a little interesting. Yeah. Go ahead, Jeff. Anything more?
I'm done. That's it. I just remember
a good game.
We would bring our PCs and we would do the direct connection and we would play. And this was all before I had wives and kids and and stuff like that. So we could easily do that. Waste an entire weekend just playing, playing stuff.
Yep, I've been to a buddy's house that had 6 PCs. They were all doing a Quake LAN party or whatever. They were really big into that.
Was it. Cool.
Computers were expensive back then, so we used to all bring our own, but we would have a big weekend. It would be just a gaming weekend, and then it would be worth it to lug the machine over. And I think my buddy lived in an apartment, so it was up and down the elevator, and with all this different 8 trips up and down, bringing all the crap in. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Dude, I played Diablo 1 on a 75 megahertz computer. All right. I mean, that's like the equivalent of a turtle, walking in the street.
That was state of the art back in the 90s.
Oh my god!
I think Ryzak was 5 at that point, wasn't he?
Oh, you stop it! I was
5. Well, let me a blast from the past here. Chris mentioned the Atari, and I can't bring up RPGs without bringing up the very first RPG or RPG-esque game that I ever played. Put it this way, it was the first title that I knew you could complete on Atari. There was a beginning and an end, and it was called Adventure. and you were just a little teeny tiny block on the screen.
Yeah.
But you had to find keys to castles. You had to slay dragons. You had to avoid a bat. And the bat was like Loki. He was mischievous. He'd just fly in and grab something and pull it away.
Yep.
Once in a great while, he would bring you something, but not very often.
I feel like you just watched Ready Player One and pulled that from there.
Yeah.
No, but that's a good shout out, though.
Yeah,
that is.
That dragon was fast too. I was like 4 or 5 playing it. It scared the hell out of me. It would just like fly across the screen and just attack you. Yep.
So here's the game. So all it is, you're just a block. You collect keys to open up drawbridges, and you have to find this exact thing to slay the dragons, or the dragons will eat you, and you end up in their stomach. Like it was.
Yeah.
You almost got it.
Let me tell you, man. Oh my God. Is that just awesome? Look at the graphics.
That dragon looks so real.
Okay, this game doesn't seem as hard as it did when I was 4. But
a tutorial. You know what to do.
Exactly. But yeah, so you would slay these dragons, and then this is something that I did not know about until researching this game again for this show was they had 3 different difficulty levels. I only played the first one, which is
did they all have the same color dragons?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think what the difficulty did is this part where you go into the maze. The maze is much bigger.
Gotcha. To get the chalice in the bridge, yeah.
So
I used to always say, why couldn't they just give that block a couple of eyes? Put the 2 dots.
Yeah, and this
how much programming that would be to make those dots move?
Yeah.
So this was one of the very first games that actually had an Easter egg in it. And the Easter egg was the developer's name, because back then they didn't Atari didn't want to honor their developers who made the games for some reason, and they ended up making, what was it, Activision, I think, because of that. And then they started to actually market the games with who developed them and all that stuff. Now, I want to ask this. What's the one RPG you spent the most time on? Because this isn't my favorite RPG. This is just the first one that got me started. So we'll start with Ryzak and then go that way. So Ryzak, what's the RPG you spent most of your time playing?
Oblivion.
Like most time played?
Oblivion, for sure.
Nice.
Oblivion.
Probably 300 plus hours on Oblivion.
Nice.
Wow. So obviously you beat that title then.
Oh, many, many times. Yeah. I think I beat that game. I want to say I beat it with at least 8 different classes.
Oh, wow.
And that was one of the first games that I actually bought DLC for. So they had a couple of DLCs that came out. It wasn't
that damn horse, was it?
No,
don't tell me you didn't buy that damn expensive horse.
I didn't buy the horse, no. Oblivion was fantastic. I actually got stuck on Morrowind when it came out for Xbox. And I remember going into the first town and going into the first NPC house and killing them. And then I was like, oh, this is kind of cool because now I have a house, so I can just go rob people and bring stuff back here and nobody will ever find me. And then I tried to do that in Oblivion, and then the guard found me, and I was like, wait a second, the last game you didn't do this, so you fixed it. But then I was so excited for Skyrim, and Skyrim is a great game. I've had Skyrim on 4 different platforms, but it's just not Oblivion. Oblivion was a fantastic game for me. I was actually going to say when you were saying that first one that you played, Dragon Warrior was actually the first one that I played. It's now Dragon Quest, right? Yeah. When it first got released in America, it was Dragon Warrior. That's the one that kind of set the tone. But no, Oblivion for me, for sure, definitely the most hours played.
Great shout out, man. It was a great game. Morrowind was better, but we'll move past that.
I played a lot of Morrowind, but it wasn't online, so I couldn't even talk to people.
Well, I just appreciate Morrowind. You go up and kill the wrong person, and it says you're doomed to live in a world that is dead. Congratulations.
Yeah.
I just appreciated that. I killed Vivek anyway. All right, Hell Monkey. How about you? What's the most hours you poured into an RPG?
It's probably actually Path of Exile, which is a free-to-play one.
Nice.
Yeah, I actually really enjoy that game. It's been one of the games that I've been using to learn how to do keyboard and mouse. That was never. I grew up in a controller generation, you know. I'm still no good with a keyboard and mouse, but I love that because I can play it on local PC. I can play it on GeForce Now as well. And other than that, The Witcher is probably going to slowly creep up. I just started playing The Witcher games. Don't shout at me. And I'm going to tell you something though. The original Witcher holds up in this day and age. So it does. Like I wasn't expecting that to be that good for the time that it came out. And considering where we are now, I'm on to chapter 3. I'm working my way slowly through that. I'm just really going to enjoy that one. And
very compelling character and story. That one, The Witcher.
Absolutely. I don't know how I had played them by now. Really, I just sort of missed them and passed them over. But other than that, no, Path of Exile, just because it's so easy to jump in and out of for an hour here and there, and I really enjoy it as well. It's a great game.
How about you, Chris Mango? And you're absolutely right, Mr. Urban World.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to Path of Exile first of all, because I didn't like Diablo 3 as much as I liked Diablo 2, and so I switched over to Path of Exile for a little while, and just I appreciated all the customizability you could do there with the enormous skill trees and the colored sockets going in and out. But the one I played the most is definitely my second favorite RPG, which is Diablo 2. Like hands down, like brothers with Path of Exile, and I got super excited when you guys started talking about Blizzard games in general, because I'm a big StarCraft and Diablo guy. But Diablo 2, Diablo 2, I easily got 100 hours. Yep, I got the battle chest too. So good.
Nice.
StarCraft 1, StarCraft 2, oh, so good. So Diablo 2, definitely spent so many hours. My two younger brothers and I, we would just crank out tons of different characters. I have an item for your character, you have an item for my character, just muling, and it's so much easier to trade items when you have someone else in your game. You don't have to drop the item on the ground and leave the game and hope it doesn't disappear or get stolen and then come back. Diablo 2, especially Lord of Destruction, the expansion, just
so that was I brought up the mule accounts, and that's what they would use those for. Somebody to just hang out and hold on to stuff and wait for another person to come and get it. And it's remarkable.
You find a really good item, but it's not for your character. It's for the next character you want to make, and you have to be level 80 anyway. So I would spend, once you get to level 90, whatever, and you're just trying to perfect your character, you would spend like just days in the trading post, just hoping to get like the one item that you need left. And then like 10, 15 years later, they patched in new things with like synergies and like other interesting quests and stuff too. And it's just like, I don't know, it's kind of my childhood all over again, which is nice. But yeah, I definitely sunk the most amount of hours into Diablo 2.
Yeah, my buddy Brad Towell, who I mentioned earlier, him too. Like I said, he would grind out for people so they didn't have to do the grind. And the way he explained it to me is you could hang out in the trading post, like you said, or do the same run over and over and over and over and over again to try to get that one, whatever you were looking for,
Yeah, Mephisto runs and Bale runs. And they would just be like, Bale run 001, Bale run 002, and you knew it was going to go into the hundreds. Like they already like put in the 3 digits. Like it just, now they just have like bots running it too. So like it takes a little bit of the fun out of it, but getting to play it growing up with just friends and my brothers it was just fantastic.
How about you, Ray? What's the most hours you've poured into an RPG?
Man, let me tell you something. This probably might surprise a lot of people, but Monster Hunter World. Wow. I had 3 co-workers.
On what platform?
On what platform? Believe it or not, this was on the PlayStation 4. Okay. And we would start at 9 p.m. and we would get done till about 5 o'clock in the morning. And so in Monster Hunter World, you would have these cats were the chefs, and they would prepare your meal, and you would have to pick certain meals to get you ready, with all your attributes and everything. Make sure you have your armor, and then you would just go out into the world and hunt monsters. And sometimes you couldn't do it by yourself. You needed your friends who had different weapons. My favorite weapon was 2 swords, and and it was just one weapon. Somebody played an instrument to calm the beast down, and there was certain beasts that they would feature that would come out, And we was like, hey, they're coming out with this beast. You ready to get them tonight? And so, I mean, they had one beast that was like a pickle. It looked like a giant pickle, but it was ferocious and it was mean. And we would die.
Mean pickle.
It was a mean, yes, it wasn't a stink pickle, but it was a mean pickle. And we would fight and fight and fight and die. But we would all try and level each other up. Plus, what was cool is when you beat the beast, you can take the body parts from the beast and add it to your armor. Certain gems you can fuse it into your weapons, into your clothes to make you strong. But man, we played hours playing that game, you know. And it's amazing. It's amazing. But Monster World Hunter.
That's surprising. I would never have guessed that for you.
Me neither.
Yeah.
How about you, Jeff? What's the most hours you've poured into an RPG?
And Leisure Suit Larry doesn't count.
Shout out too.
For those of us that have children, they know that once the kids roll in, your time is limited, right? So the game that I played the most of was an old SNES game back in the 90s called Earthbound. You RPGs and your wizards and your dinosaurs and your dragons and your whatnots. This one was just you're just in. I used to say it was just in somewhere in Canada. I don't think it was. But that's what we used. It's just some little town in Canada, and there was lots of cool little pop reference, and there was all sorts of funny little jokes. Kind of like. Dark Side Detective has these sort of, goofy little jokes. It had these goofy little jokes because that would have been like 95. I think I was a loser then and didn't have any girlfriends. So I think I just sat around playing this game. Because once the kids start rolling around in around 2001, that, I played, but it really cut back on my playing time, right? So all of my long playing time, game finishing, game whatevers was in the 90s. And so Earthbound was a game that I played a lot on the NES way back. You played it, Ray? You heard of it?
Yes, I've heard of Earthbound. It's actually also on the NES Classic Mini as well.
Oh, that's fantastic. I didn't know that title was on there. But yeah, I played a little Earthbound. I don't think I've completed that one, though. There's an awful lot of RPGs I haven't completed. Here's a couple of good mentions, though. I'm about to bring up my favorite, and I think everybody's going to have something to say about that title. But here's a good mention anyway. The Secret of Mana.
Yes, that was a very popular game.
Yep, Secret of Mana. It wasn't. It was an action RPG, meaning you didn't have. It wasn't set up like Mango Mischief to where you had turn-based. Yep, this was action-oriented. And then the next one I want to show you real quick. Most of you guys have probably played The Secret of Mana.
No!
Chrono Trigger.
Oh my God. Okay, that was the hit. That was
Xenogears, and Xenogears is based off of this and Final Fantasy in a way. So, yeah.
Yes. Chrono Trigger was one of those SNES RPGs that you and a buddy could drop in and out of each other's games. Well, I mean, he had to be sitting next to you, of course, but there was no online component to this game at the time. But
correct me if I'm wrong, but I think IGN put out a list of top, and that wasn't this number one in their top RPG list.
Probably.
I don't know when it came out, but there was some. I've seen various top lists, and if this wasn't number one of top RPGs, it was in the top 2 or 3.
Yes. Well, because Chrono Trigger deals with time travel, and it's like set across a few 100,000 years, and like the things that you decide to do in the past will affect things that happen in the future. And you could drop in and out with friends. If somebody popped over, you were in the middle of a game, they could pick up the second controller and pop in, and they're the one of your party members. So it was extremely awesome for the time.
Right, Zach, this would be a game. This would be a game that they need to bring.
Oh, I don't disagree.
Yeah, Chrono Trigger.
I don't disagree at all. I mean, and you look at it. I mean, between Final Fantasy, between this, and then Xenogears, the game that I had pulled, they're all Square games. So there's a lot of similarities between them, except for story.
what would be interesting is if this game ends up on PiePacker, because PiePacker, you can play online with people, so you could have up to 3 people jumping into your, Super Nintendo game. That would be fabulous.
Chris, do you know about PiePacker?
No, I don't. Can you tell me more?
Go ahead, William.
Yeah, PiePacker is a cloud-based retro game in the cloud console, kind of. It's more like an application or whatever, but you can connect to friends and you can do video chat or chat while you're playing these old retro titles together. It's absolutely a cool idea. I haven't used it myself, but Stadia, Vet Cloud Gaming has, and he said it was really, really good.
I would kick myself for not supporting their Kickstarter. But yeah, if I played it, I haven't streamed any of it yet, but I have played it. 'Cause I do for those that don't know, I do a retro console stream every Friday night. But I have played around with the PiePacker stuff. And they're also coming out with a device later this year where you'll be able to plug your own cartridges in. So if you have an old cartridge of these games, you would then be able to suck it into the game.
They're developing a console they're going to sell that will connect online and all that stuff as well. So they got some cool stuff there. And Brad Towell says, I dumped thousands of hours over 12 years straight into Diablo 2.
It's an amazing game.
Yep.
He definitely sunk some time into that. But okay, so that was Chrono Trigger. That had definitely needed a mention. And here's 2 more. Shining Force and Shining Force 2.
Ooh, I thought that was gonna be. I thought you were gonna go Beyond Oasis.
That's good too, though, Ray. That's good too. Shining Force 1 and 2 was almost.
These were Genesis games.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was almost like chess. It had really cool stories, the normal tropes for RPGs, and it was translated from Japanese or whatever, and it's the translations are done well, but sometimes things don't make exact sense, when you're reading them. But they did a really good job on the game.
Look at that rectangle box with the text in
it. Seems familiar.
Yeah, I'm trying to find where combat starts because it's a little like chess. Of course, you run around and you do your dungeon crawling and collecting.
So is it like all these mobile games now where you're gonna like match shapes and stuff?
See, man, this was the good old days of RPG, man. This is
so if you look when you highlight your character, a combination of geometric shapes appear around your character, showing you how far you can move and where you can move. If you surround a character, you do more damage. Like all of these stuffs are incorporated into the game, so it's not just about who you attack and when you attack; it's how you coordinated your people as well.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to give this game 1 and 2 a shout out because they were very good story wise and a hell of a lot of fun to master the gameplay as well.
What about the online games when things started going online? Like Ultima Online was probably the first one that I ever saw. Did you guys get into any of the online RPG type games?
No, that passed me right by.
I didn't get into the Xbox 360s when I started playing online.
So online stuff was console only.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ultima Online was probably pretty crazy because there was Ultima. Jeff, I'm surprised that you didn't say Ultima. I figured that would have been a game probably back in the day that you would have played.
Ultima is another game that would suck hours out of your life if you allowed it.
I thought Jeff was going to say Zork.
Oh, hey, we got Zork coming up. As a matter of fact. And for those that don't know, there was a later game released called The Return of Zork or Return to Zork. Mm-hmm. But the Zork we're referring to is like the DDoS or the DOS text base. We'll show you in a second.
I was a Zork player.
But Shining Force 2, I really enjoyed this title as well.
Yeah, that game looks amazing.
Yep, it was very, 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 very similar to Shining Force 1 and all that. Oh, let me show you this real quick. Ray chose the game Faxanadu. And I know all of us, or at least myself, I used to watch Saturday morning cartoons and loved them. Here is a Here is Captain N, Captain N, the Game Master cartoon.
Boy, I watched that. I watched it.
Here,
Yeah.
help us.
I watched this episode, and like a lot of things from your childhood, it doesn't hold up as well. But
He's the Game Boy.
The reason I chose this episode to show you, the feud of Xanadu.
Yes. There was also another, wasn't there a movie with Olivia Newton-John?
Yep. Xanadu.
Yeah.
Oh, Xanadu, yes.
Hey, Mega Man.
That'll be on
Yeah, right.
movie show.
Is that Simon the Castlevania?
Yeah, it's supposed to be. He looks more like an aviator, though, which is kind of weird. And the other thing, if you listen to Mega Man, he sounds like he smoked crack for 10 years. I swear. I swear. As a matter of fact, hold on. I think I can.
Dude, it's Ryzak without a mustache.
Shut up!
Hold on. I'm going to share that again with audio. You got to hear this guy's voice. He does. He sounds like he smoked crack for years.
God, that just took me way back.
It's pretty bad, y'all.
That took me way back.
Now, there may be an echo, so I'm going to pull it off as soon as I'm done sharing you this. But listen closely to this guy's voice.
Oh. You got to get there. You go.
All right, listen to this.
Whoa, heads up, Simon.
Oh my god.
Well, cigarettes will do to your voice.
Yeah,
no, that was Crystal. That wasn't cigarettes at all.
Right. That was.
Why did they make Mega Man sound like that, dude?
I have no idea, but when I heard that, I went, "Whoa!" Sounds like Popeye and shit. What's up with that? Oh man, but yeah, Captain N. Another one that I brought up was I showed Sierra the old Mario Brothers.
No!
The cartoon
real
one.
life Luigi.
They do the rap.
Mario.
They do the rap at the beginning of the show.
John Leguizamo.
Yeah.
No. That was the movie.
That was the movie. Captain Lou Albano.
Oh, the cartoon. Okay.
Captain Lou Albano, who was a wrestler.
They would start off real, and then the cartoon would pop up.
Yeah, I watched the episode with Sergeant Slaughter.
Oh, yes. Nice.
Yeah, just a blast from the past, and of course, all those cartoons, man. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was super large between '88 and like now.
Yeah.
Just so many. Well,
there were different time frames for those cartoons too, right? So like back in the mid '80s to late '80s, you had He-Man. There was Voltron. I think the GoBots got thrown in there, and then you had G.I. Joe, which was a fantastic cartoon. It went to Ninja Turtles.
Dude, Transformers, man, come on now.
Oh yeah,
7 a.m.
Now G.I. Joe was bigger. There was a lot of G.I. Joe cartoons in the '70s too. And that's when G.I. Joe was like 18.
He was like huge.
Yeah, G.I. Joe back in the 70s was like, my brother had all the G.I. Joes and they were like this big. And then by the time I rolled around, G.I. Joe was this big.
Right. Yep. That was my childhood. G.I. Joes and then Ninja Turtles.
And I know Ray's going to laugh.
Together.
Yeah, Ray's gonna laugh, but it was Care Bears and My Little Ponies.
Whatever.
And, I had strawberry shortcake and Rainbow Bright.
Ryzak is a brony. When you go into your brony convention,
brony.
Man.
You talking about LeBron's son, Brony?
That's right.
He's a brony.
I miss the '80s, man. I'd go back in a heartbeat if I could.
I like the Care Bears. I ain't gonna lie.
I could not talk about RPGs without talking about this.
Yes! Yeah, he took my game from me, folks. This was my game. He stole it from me.
Yeah, so when this game was released, this is one of those games that had like such fanfare and such hype, and everybody was anticipating this game, and Square delivered, man. It absolutely blew everybody away. This is most people's top 10 PlayStation games anyway, if they're just naming off for PlayStation. This game had a large place in my heart because it's one of the super long games that I played all the way through multiple times. And I just have a lot of respect for this game. I mean,
you could change out your characters. You know, I think this is one of the first games I remember where you could swap out which character led and.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the only games where you start off as an ecological terrorist, and the game gets better from there. I mean,
then you become a good guy.
Yeah, and the way they played with not reincarnation, but your soul essence is going to return to the planet, and the organization Maku or Makao or however you say it is harvesting that like gasoline, you know, and like we do on our planet. And all of these things kind of played together to make a very interesting story. And then they get you to love these characters, and then they take one from you. No spoilers, but they take one from you, and it's tragic, and it makes you want to get revenge. And it's just a fabulous, fabulous story. Jeff, did you play through Final Fantasy VII? And if you did, what did you think?
I did not. I did not. Yeah, there was a lot of. I think by the time it rolled out, I was more knee deep in the Madden, and getting into Madden. So I never got into any of the Final Fantasies. Unfortunately.
Well, if you could get in a time machine, would you go back and say no Madden?
I would.
That's what I thought. I thought you might.
You need to say. You need to say no Dallas Cowboys. What you need to do is go back in time machine and say that.
Dude, watching this back, like I remember these graphics, and it was like claymation almost. Like it at the time, I was like, "Oh my god, you see the graphics?"
Like, yeah, it's so real back then. You know, like Jeff said, it's very hard to, or you actually can't look at an old game and compare it nowadays. You just can't. But at the time this came out, this was top of the line. It blew people away. Barrett, there's one of my favorite characters.
That's it.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this game. I put a hell of a lot of time into this game. Probably not the most hours on an RPG, but very close. The most hours I think I've played in an RPG, at least in the last 10 years, has been Red Dead Redemption 2. I put like 800 hours into the main story because I played through it like 3 or 4 times. Ray, what did you think of this title? And what at the time and now?
Dude, it took me to a fantasy world. I used to call in work. I was young and dumb, man, because I was like, I gotta finish. I wanted to know the next chapter. And so I would call in, and my roommate would be in another room, and I bought the giant guidebook. And I would open it up.
Like that thick.
Yeah, I would learn all the characters and everything. Just the music, the animation, the story. It touched me. It was like one of the first games that really like wow. You know, you really love the character, all the characters and everything. And I just got really into this game. So good story, fun. It had all kinds of different emotions. Cloud was a badass.
Yes, he was.
He was a badass, man, you know. And
there was secrets to be had in this game. If you traveled the world long enough, you found a creature you couldn't kill.
Yeah.
I mean, you could if you knew how, but
I love the bird. What the hell they call the birds?
Chocobos.
Yeah, I love the races, man, and jumping on them and riding them, and this game, you know, and Barrett. Oh my God!
How many discs were there? Were there 4 or 6? I don't remember.
I think
there's 3.
3. Yeah.
Hold on.
3.
1.
Everything was 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
I know it came in a big case,
and you got a book.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this game. How about you, Ryzak? Did you play Final Fantasy VII?
Dude, this is the GOAT. I mean, how do you not, when you talk about RPGs, bring this game up? There's so many innovations in this game, which you saw in some of that video. You were able to change your character's name. You know, there were elements that were brought into the fights that you know, you had confusion on your character or sleep or you know, you had different effects that would bother you that you had to counter. I'll just say one word: Sephiroth.
Yes.
Everybody was scared of Sephiroth.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Oh my god, that just played over and over
in your head.
Over.
Yeah. And there's that AP thing, and like I said, a couple times already, like this Chrono Trigger and Xenogears, they're all kind of similar. So yeah, this is the GOAT.
I can't believe the stuff they got away with in this game with the pre-rendered backgrounds, some of the story, and as large as the game was. I think this was the largest game, at least like hours of play and stuff to find that had ever come out up to that point.
Ray, let me ask you. I know that that first episode of Retro Rewind I was on with you guys, we had talked about that show that was on Netflix, that 6-part show that went through the gaming history. I can't think of the name of it right now. Was this the first game that you remember a black character being in?
Oh, that's interesting.
Wow.
RPG wise.
Wow, that's deep. But you know what? Yeah, really, that I can honestly think of. Yeah.
And the reason I'm asking that is because remember the Madden, the guy that got hired to work for EA and shade the players because all the football players were the same color, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
I can't think of another character off the top of my head before Barrett.
Yeah.
Sorry to throw that topic out here.
No, I'm trying to think. And honestly, bro, I can't really think of any character, but I always, if there was a character that if I ever did like cosplay, it would be Barrett.
Yeah, I loved his gun arm, man. He was just a boss.
Well, you're similar proportion. Big up top, little down below.
Yeah, whatever. But anyway, and then what was cool about Barrett, like with you listen, yo, you can feel like he was not feeling Cloud at the beginning.
No.
Come on, soldier.
Yeah, the story is just so robust, man. You start somewhere and you end up somewhere completely different, man.
It's emotional. It's an emotional.
The planet's dying. Can't you hear the planet is crying? Yeah, they're killing the planet. Oh, yeah.
What's her face over there? The girl that starts falling in love with Cloud. That's taking care of the flowers in the church and
Aerith.
Yeah, everybody wanted to hook up with Cloud, man. Cloud was a G.
Look at that hair. How about Johnny Bravo hair.
Did you enjoy playing this game at all, or did you?
What was that? Are you talking to me?
Yeah, I was talking to Hell Monkey.
Sorry.
You ever play?
I'm probably going to get kicked off the show here, so I'm going to try and grab some brownie points. That Netflix show was high score, and it was absolutely fantastic. And here's now why I'm going to get kicked off the show. I have never played a single Final Fantasy game.
Oh,
right. Hey, can I tell you? There's a lot of games that I haven't played. So, and there's nothing wrong.
Yeah,
no, and you may have played a Final Fantasy game in your history and don't even know it because there's been a whole bunch of like put it this way, if you're in Japan, you have a different series of Final Fantasies than you do over here. Like the numbers are all messed up too. But anyway, Final Fantasy for me was a mainstay. How about you, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, FF7, I ended up playing that on the PS2 because it was backwards compatible with PS1. I played that all the way through back in the day, and it was just fantastic. I liked the ability to customize what you were leveling up in terms of materia. So there were so many just different tiers of what you could level up and what you could choose to customize. And then I played it again on the Switch because the Switch came out with a port like a year or two ago to kind of have some quality of life updates. So I played through it again, and you could speed up the movement and things like that just to make things run along if you wanted to play it for a second or third time. But yeah, I loved that there was just so much depth. The story was fantastic. And I liked how if you wanted to rack your brains and attempt to beat any of like those ultimate weapons, like every single Final Fantasy game has like Ruby weapon, Omega weapon, Emerald weapon, things with 1 trillion hit points where if you want to spend the next 3 hours hoping to get lucky and all of that, like you can do all of that, which was great. There was, it was not the hardest game in the world to get into, although the combat system was a little bit different from your typical turn-based. But just the skill ceiling was really high. Like, getting to play with different characters, they would make tier lists of which characters were the best and which were the worst. And, at the end of the day, I think I just did like Cloud, Barrett, and Red because those were my 3 favorite. And play through it that way, and then you just mix it up with the other characters later on. But yeah, Final Fantasy VII is just a classic Final Fantasy game, and it's one of my top 2 or 3 favorite Final Fantasy games.
Yeah, this game almost burnt up my PlayStation, and why is because the last fight with Sephiroth, I had played for like a 4 or 5 hour stretch, and I finally made it to Sephiroth, and we had to go somewhere, and there was no saving, man. I couldn't save in the middle of combat, so I'm like, all right, I'll just leave it on, and like 7 hours later, we get back home, and as soon as I unpaused it and started moving, it froze. So
I was going to ask that question. How many games have you done that with?
Yeah, you're killing your machine.
But the last fight with Sephiroth, if you got your, I'm not going to get the terminology of this right, but they had like these gems that had monsters or elemental creatures inside or whatever, almost like Pokemon. You would use this, and then it would call in an elemental to come fight for you or do an attack.
Yeah, the summon materia or something like that.
Yes, the summon materia.
Yes. So I had so many of those that I could like hit a button and set it down for 30 minutes. And it would just keep doing the animations, and that fight took forever. It's one of the fights that would take over an hour if you let it.
Yeah. And then, they kind of, Sephiroth kind of had the quintessential, like, that's not even my final form type of thing with the safer Sephiroth. And it's just like, how many forms are there going to be? And just, it really fed into that RPG trope, which was fantastic. You think you beat the game, and then it turns out there's another boss or another form, and now you're going to verse the real boss and things like that. It was just really fantastic.
Dude, my roommate, they also market the hell out of this game. I mean, yes, with the toys, the posters. My roommate, man, I mean, our rooms had all kinds of like Final Fantasy, like little miniature toys and action figures and stuff. So, wow.
Yeah, it definitely was one of the first games that went mainstream, to where you could go find a shirt with some of the characters on it. I mean, it was very popular, and it was in all the magazines, IGN and all of them, where they made you fall in love with the game before the game ever came out. And like I said, considering that CD Projekt Red was one of my favorite developers, they had Cyberpunk come out, and like it or hate the game, whatever, but the hype was massive, and the hype let everybody down. This is one of those titles where the hype was palpable, and it came out and everybody embraced the game. It's definitely a fan.
Those gaming stores were starting to become really mainstream too, right? You had your Funko Lands, Star Lands, that eventually turned into EB Games. I mean, Babbage's was going out of business. If you used to go to Toys R Us and buy video games, they used to have all the little, price pamphlets sitting there in the board, and you'd have to take one and take it up front to get your game. So all of that promotional material was out there in everybody's face for this game.
Well, another cool thing also is usually in RPGs, you just have the monster stay there and then just, throw whatever power. These monsters would just run up to you, pow, 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 and then jump back into their position. Yeah. So I thought that was a really cool feature, how the monsters interact with the characters. But yeah, cool game.
Yeah, that is a cool game. Jeff, do you want to do This Week in Retro, sir? Let me bring it up here.
It's my favorite part of the show.
I know I'm muted. I know I'm muted. You don't have to tell me I'm muted.
Favorite part of the show.
So this is a segment I do every week where I look back at, what happened, this date, back in retro. My question for Hellboy and then Chris, what does retro mean to you? So if I said, is this retro? What is retro to you?
Yeah, Hellmonkey.
And we've done this over all the other episodes. It's very interesting what some people say is retro to them. Yeah. So go ahead, Hellmonkey. What is if I said is this retro or not? What does
retro mean to you?
So to me, retro is something that they sort of you don't see anymore. So if I'm thinking the sort of 2D, even the isometric graphics that came in, to your SNES and that's retro to me because we don't see it in modern games now. Not as much. If you go hunting for it, it's there.
Mm-hmm.
And retros also, to me, like, you can't get it anymore, and it was like a one of a kind thing, like who did it first sort of thing. Yeah, but I suppose everyone has a different opinion of what's retro. Someone might call their first gaming system retro. Like my first was a SNES, and then I made a big jump to the PlayStation after that. I just had a SNES right up until a PlayStation came out, believe it or not. So even PlayStation's sort of becoming retro to me now. The more modern games are becoming. Yeah, so that's what I would say. Something that was done for the first time, and something that you don't really see a lot of anymore.
I have real quick before we jump to Chris to ask him what he thinks retro is. What was gaming culture like in your country, Hellmonkey? Because I imagine it's a little different than the United States.
Yeah, you know, quite a big difference. So you either had like most when you're growing up, you either had like the sports guys or the geeks, basically, right? We'll call it. And the geeks played video games, but then video games became more for everyone as the years went on. But it still stayed the same. You had the guys that played like sort of, your Tekken, your Mortal Kombat, and things like that, and then you had the guys that did, your sort of more, so RPG, the games that you spent a lot of time in. There was like competitive games, and then there was story games. And I grew up with the sort of competitive games like your Tekkens and your Crash Bandicoots and your Spyro the Dragons and them sort of games. So that's probably one of the reasons why I never played Final Fantasy, because I was in one camp. You had to be in one camp or the other. Where I grew up, sort of thing, and I definitely missed out some cracking games. I love listening to everyone's stories that they have of Final Fantasy, because I know how big a series that was, and how impactful that was on people and people's personal lives, not just like their gaming lives as well, in a lot of ways. Probably one of the regrets is that I never played any of them games.
Well, their stories were so great. It not influenced me really, but got me excited for storytelling. Which is very interesting. What do you think retro is, Chris?
So I guess before my answer, I just wanted to I guess just agree with Hellmonkey, because when he was bringing up about how it's just the things you don't see anymore, what I was thinking is I guess the N64 and even the GameCube used analog as opposed to digital. And so, like, growing up, I'm actually, I collect N64 stuff also, and just having like the CRT TVs, the old school big blocks that are 1 million pounds, and just even those sorts of things you'd consider accessories, necessary accessories to the consoles. Like, we don't have necessarily need for those with the newer consoles. I guess I feel like anything that's at least 2 or 3 game generations ago, growing up, I considered retro to be like what my parents played that weren't really current based on myself. So like, while my older cousins had the NES and the SNES, I had probably considered retro as a child to be the Atari 2600, because I kind of jumped mostly from there to the N64, which was like night and day. I was able to play. Yeah. So like, obviously I played plenty of the old school like Super Mario Brothers games and the Donkey Kong Countries and stuff too, of the NES and SNES. But as an N64 player growing up, I would have definitely considered retro to be Atari, probably not NES and SNES, because it was, just 5 or 10, 15 years ago. And nowadays, I'm sure, with I guess Gen Z and even the up and coming children, they would consider it easily retro to be N64 and GameCube, because you had to explain back in your day when you played it as a kid, these were the other consoles and this is what they had. So yeah, I'd probably say like what your parents played is probably the span of time between what's current and what I would probably consider retro.
Well, I like the thought that some kid that was born 3 years ago or a couple years ago is their first gaming experience might be Stadia. And in 20 years, they might sit down to talk to somebody and say, man, you remember that thing we used to play back in the day? And then Stadia's retro. So I don't know. I find that amazing. And fabulous.
Well, my youngest son's 18, and when I play on the PlayStation 3 like I did last Friday, that's retro to him. Because he still plays on his PlayStation 4. But PlayStation 3, although we got a crap ton of games, you know, and I played on my retro streams. Yeah, he thinks that's, you know, anything PlayStation 3 and before is retro. Right?
I like Lloyd's answer. Lloyd from the Nerd Nest was on 2 weeks ago, and his answer was anything cartridge based, pretty much. From the move to, you know, CD and then DVD and then Blu-ray, like he said, anything cartridge was kind of retro to him. But okay, so this
so anybody who's new to the show, every week and even on my Twitter, sometimes when I see stuff, because I look at this every day and I will post stuff, and I don't generally go over year 2000, so I can, and I broke it out. There's a 2001 in here. But you know, and of course, you know, wow. Zork's on there because, and I've said this many times before, it uses the world's most powerful graphics engine, which is your mind. So, you know, let
me demonstrate that, Jeff, real quick.
Yeah, you got,
this is the graphics of Zork. Zork 1, the Great Underground Empire. West of house, you are standing in an open field west of a white house with a board front door. There is a small mailbox here. So what would you type in, Jeff? Open mailbox?
Open mailbox, yeah. Type in open mailbox. Let's see what's in there. And then we got to go west because we're west of the house. Now we got to go west, right? And yeah, you know how many, I don't know. Did you guys ever do text-based?
Yes.
I read Choose Your Own Adventures. That's as
those
close
were
as
the
I came.
things.
Yeah. I think I mentioned that on the first one. I had a lot of those books where, there's all these different versions. So yeah, and then when they moved into TextGate, big fan. If you go back to the list, there was what was on the list? Ray, you something that piqued your interest. Oh, In Cold Blood, yes.
Yes, In Cold Blood.
Yeah, even Unreal World, that was a DOS version.
Yeah.
Unreal World. I never heard of that one.
Oh my God.
I've heard of Unreal, but not Unreal World.
Yeah, not Unreal Tournament, I don't think.
Yeah, that's true.
Little old DOS, a lot of old DOS games that there's a million of them. On the next one, what's in the next one? I don't remember.
Herc's Adventure for the Sega Saturn.
Yep.
Nice. I don't think I ever played Herc's. Now this next one I have.
Of course.
Donkey Kong and DK Jr.
Yeah, but it's the Japan NES version release.
Yes. Yep.
Right on. Strategic Command, European Theater. Now those were a big series back in the day, wasn't it?
There was a lot of different strategic commands out. That's why I threw it up on there, just because this is one that came out. Yep.
Wow.
Flight Gear. Is that before Flight Simulator?
I believe so.
Wow.
Yeah.
Windows, Mac.
I put that on there, and we talked with John Scar last week, because there's a lot, there were a lot of old games for the Macintosh, and we often forget that. Yeah. And also for Linux. I know that, there's a newer bunch of games now. I know Ethan, I'm not sure if he's in the chat. He's a big Linux guy. But there, lots of different little games on for those.
And it was
I throw on some of those just to kind of remind people there used to be those kind of games.
Here's Mission Impossible for the 64.
Wow! Hey, let me tell you something. I remember Mission Impossible, the movie, and then the games came out. Dun, 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 dun.
Now this game reminds me, graphic-wise, of GoldenEye.
Yeah.
Just because of the polygons and the way the faces are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Made me think of GoldenEye a lot. Now I have played this game.
And that doesn't look like Tom Cruise.
No.
He's in disguise.
That's Tom Cruise. But no, did you guys ever play that part where you're supposed to be lowered down?
The lasers
touch the floor. Yes. That level drove me insane on this game.
There's
Ethan Hunt.
Yeah.
How many versions of that drop down appeared in games in various shapes or how many times is that? I don't want to say copied or.
Well, what was it? Splinter Cell with Sam Fisher.
They had a similar moment like that in one of those games. Yeah. But this one was obnoxious. Like, you couldn't move the camera well enough to see what you were doing to maneuver yourself, and it because of the lack of camera options, you died a lot on that part.
Like,
but man, how
sit on this bench with this bomb just chilling.
Well, I thought it was a box of chocolate.
Yeah,
well, look at how
Gump.
this is again looking back with rose-colored glasses, but look at how like thick their chests are and stuff, man.
Hey, let me tell you something. Back then, I thought these were awesome, dude. Like,
Oh, yeah,
we all did.
6'4",
We all did.
6'4", PlayStation. I was like,
I hate getting older, man, because you're like back then. It's like this is 1996. Like it's not that long ago, man. Like,
bro,
stop getting old.
My son, like, I'm a fossil. Okay, that's how much.
Jeez.
You know, when I bust out the Atari 64, you know, he'd laugh. The 26, he's laughing.
Yeah, when you showed him that big Jaguar controller, I bet you he was like, "What is that? Is that the whole system?"
It was like Coleco. You know, it looked like a telephone, and it had the 9 or whatever, and you had those little pieces of paper that you could slide in for the different games. So you had different buttons. You knew what to push.
Yeah, we brought that up. I think
a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. Yep. About the Odyssey, man, and how you put the overlays on the TV and stuff.
Yeah, I tell them if it wasn't for this GameCube and this 64, you wouldn't have your Switch.
That's true. That's true as well. Chris, are you familiar with the Odyssey, the original Odyssey?
Is that Magnavox? Like,
yes.
What is, a little bit. I've never played. I've played in television. I've played the Atari, obviously. I've never played the Odyssey.
Yeah, the Odyssey 2 is very similar to Atari. You know, it has cartridges and stuff like that. The first Odyssey had a weird controller. It was just a block, and it had two or three wheels on it, or little swivels.
Like
anyway, dials. And you took these overlays and stuck them to your screen statically, and that was the graphics. Like there was no actual graphics on screen. It was just an overlay, and you were doing like Pong. And the only thing that changed it from Pong or tennis to hockey is the overlay you'd put on the screen.
SPG, you said that wasn't a console.
Yeah, well, that was my question, is that because there was no actual graphics on screen, no scorekeeping, none of that stuff, would you consider that the first gaming console? Well, in my opinion, it's more like a board game console, but it's still putting something on the TV. So what are your thoughts, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I think of the dichotomy between it's either a handheld system or it's a console type of thing also. And it sounds like that's technically not handheld because it's not in your hands the entire time. Like I don't know. It sounds like it'd work great along like other arcade machines and things like that too, based on how it's set up. I would probably go with console because I can't picture it just kind of sitting in your lap or in your hand.
It's a physical device.
Yeah.
It's a physical, and to comment on Ryzak, when you're curled up with your great grandchildren, you'd be like, back in my day.
Oh, I know. I do it all the time already. I hate it.
We used to have to hold a controller. You kids now just tap the stuff that's embedded in your brains. But in our day, we used to have this thing called a television. It sat on our wall.
Yep. I was talking to my son the other day. I was like, back in the day, I stopped myself. I said, Jesus, I sound like Jeff.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, I Google imaged it. I think I'd go with console for this one, the Odyssey. After what Google Image is showing me,
Yeah, I went with that too. But it does it acts more like a board game kind of like they actually had cards just like a board game that you would have to draw, and I don't know, it was really weird. But
see, now I gotta play Mission now.
Mission Impossible.
I'm gonna have to play that when I get off.
Sorry, man. This just makes me want to play GoldenEye. I mean, back to your point earlier,
or Perfect Dark.
Yeah, Perfect Dark too. That's a good one.
Nice, good one.
Yeah, I don't know how many hours I spent grenade launching my friends in GoldenEye on.
This is almost like Hitman.
Yeah.
Yep.
Dude, look at his medals.
We really loved the Golden Gun, where it was like one shot, one kill.
Yep.
And
slappers only, baby.
I caught my friend. He was killing us all the time, and we thought he was just a really good aim. Nope. He figured out a secret. If you watch the guy's hand as you're running around, when it goes like this, it's locking on to somebody.
Uh-huh.
So he would just run around, and when his hand would twitch, he'd shoot, and he'd kill us all.
I think looking on other people's screens was kind of like the OG cheating when you're doing multiplayer in person, right? Yeah,
that's true too.
That is so
and,
true.
And you didn't have that option, you know, and our TVs were much smaller then than they are now. So actually, earlier I was talking about that it came from space and ate our brains game, and it's not online multiplayer, and it sucks because I don't want to play split screen with anybody anymore. We all have our own device now.
Right.
Like,
well, if you played GoldenEye on a 25-inch TV, you were in heaven, baby.
Yeah, and it was CRT, so it was like bubbled on the edges, you know.
That was the, you know, back. Look, you hating now, but you know that was the, you know what, back then. That was like,
look, just being able to play with my friends. It wouldn't have mattered what the size TV was.
Right.
I'd be sitting there, you know, like, you know, all
but
up in it.
Remember, Ryzak, our eyes were a lot better back then.
They were.
So well, you know,
the worst part was just sharing controllers with people because it would be like pizza night at the sleepover, and everybody's fingers would be all greasy and nasty, and then you're sharing controllers. So it'd always be like, bring your own controller, man, because you ain't using mine.
They didn't have Lysol wipes back then.
No. COVID was everywhere.
Yeah, when the NES, I had one friend that had the multi where you could link up and everybody could link up their controllers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my favorite Nintendo controller was that Advantage
controller. In the women's
bathroom. It was all steel, and it was like an arcade stick, and it had turbo buttons on it.
Whoa!
It was awesome. We got a spicy scene.
At least he got his pants on.
With the old NES fight stick.
He just knocked the leg out.
Good night, sweetheart. Good night, sweetheart.
Oh my goodness!
What is this? Jeff's gameplay?
I don't know. It looks
he's actually hitting people. I wouldn't be hitting people. I would be missing them. So
we also wouldn't hear the gameplay.
So Zork 1 had nothing but text. So here's Zork 2. I know we're not Zork 2 wasn't on there, but here is Zork number 2. And it's still got some text stuff, but it's actually got graphics.
These were very much like Dungeon and Dragon type games, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of my favorite games on NES was Gauntlet.
Yeah.
Yes, Gauntlet was good.
Oh, I preferred it in the arcade though, where you could play with your friends.
Stringing stuff together. Couldn't do that in Zork. If you wanted to go north and then do something, you had to do it as multiple things. Go north, then go west. Oh man, that was awesome. Huh.
So
there's the small mailbox.
In Zork, if it said, "Hey, there's a mailbox," you'd search inside it, and if there was an item, would you have to name the item and then say,
"Yeah, you got to take the item." Yep.
But how many different how many different options did you have? Because what if you didn't know to type the exact words in there?
Right.
Whoa!
How did Ray get in Zork?
Whoa! What the hell was that?
You got sucked into the mailbox. It looked like.
If you didn't know Ryzak, you just had to keep trying stuff. If if there was a troll under the bridge, and if you said, you'd have to kill troll, and then it would say something like, you don't have an axe, so then you got to try to find an axe, so then you got to go look for an axe, and then once you got the axe, you got to come back, and so you might have had to go.
Basically, Ryzak, your imagination and your spelling was like the limit of what you could say. Now,
I'm 0 for 2 right there, baby. I can't spell, and I don't have an imagination. So
that's why I couldn't get anywhere.
Was that Jeffrey Dahmer's house?
No, that was the Unabomber.
Oh my
the Unabomber's house.
That's Jeffrey Dahmer. He would be a retro. He's a retro name.
Oh my
Jeffrey
goodness.
is kind of a retro name. Dahmer, I'm not sure about, but but anyway, Zork. It's an interesting little game here. It's kind of like Myst, isn't it?
Jeff, how the hell did you get in that game, Jeff?
I wish I looked that good. Wow.
Oh, that's funny,
bro.
That good.
This guy's seen some stuff. You can tell.
Look at that head of hair.
He's like, please, somebody like Dallas Cowboys.
Ooh. Yeah, a lot of these games, as soon as they figured out they could use FMV, like with the Sega CD.
That looks like Dabney Coleman.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
Didn't it look like Dabney Coleman?
Yeah.
That's an old G name.
Gazpacho.
Oh, wow.
Love it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a very...
Man, I'm kind of bummed I never played this game. This looks kind of fun.
I had a friend named Jarrett, and he had all these games, and we would just sit at the computer and play Zork.
Did any of you guys play Myst?
I did. When it was rolling over there in the beginning, going up over the cliff and then the trees, Myst was the first thing I thought about. I'm not gonna lie.
Right on, man. I was no good at Myst. Yeah, I was no good at Myst. Like, I could never get the damn clues to like understand them, to know what I was supposed to do. Mm-hmm. It's always like, hey, go grab that bucket and mix it with this cogwheel, and now we'll open a door for you. Like, how did a bucket? Whatever. How did a bucket help? I don't get it. But whatever. That was Myst, man, for me. Or my, I know there's an actual game there, but all I did is like wander around, pointing and clicking. That's about it. Did you ever play Return to Zork, Jeff?
I don't think so. I did a lot of text adventure games back in the day because I was a loser and had no friends. So
you were a loser? I don't believe that.
No, that was Dork.
Oh, one more title I want to go over just real quick. To me, this game is once in a while we'll do a game that's ahead of their time. I think this game is ahead of its time. Maybe you won't agree with me. It was very hard. The original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for Nintendo NES.
Yeah, I remember.
Most people never saw or made it past the swimming stage. I was lucky as a kid and got past that stage early on. But a lot of people never made it past there. And there's an entire game past the second level. And you could swap characters on the fly to where Leonardo gets hurt almost down to where he's going to die, switch characters, and immediately you're Michelangelo or somebody else and they have full life. If your character does die, he doesn't actually die. He gets captured. And then somewhere in the world, you can find him and free him, and now he's back on your side. Some of these things really were ahead of their time, including the kind of semi-open world that they do. You guys have any thoughts on this game?
Can I just say that was one of the most played games with the least progression in my NES, because I could never get past level 2, but it didn't stop me from trying.
This game drove me crazy, man.
Yeah,
I ain't gonna lie. Not gonna lie.
Hellmonkey's referring to the seaweed part where it would glow if you hit it and stuff, and like your turtle was kind of like he wasn't very buoyant and like it was real hard to swim.
Yeah, it was nothing like Mario. Let's put it that way. So yeah, that's one of the most played games on my NES with the least progression, not past level 2.
Yeah, later I had this title for years before actually getting super far. But without cheating, without the Game Genie, without any of that stuff, I could make it to the Technodrome or just inside it, and then I would die. Like the Technodrome was an impossible, crazy level. If you've ever made it that far, you know what I'm saying. But I think this was ahead of its time for the being able to save your captured accomplices here or whatever, or friends. There was a lot of interesting mechanics as well of changing weapons and getting different. My favorite one was the scroll. It's called. It's just looks like a pie that goes across the screen that takes every enemy out. And then there was a damn part in this game in a sewer where it was a jump, and if you didn't do the jump correctly, you'd end up in the water and die. And basically, it didn't tell you this in the manual, but if you barely hit the A button, you just tap it, your guy does like a quarter jump instead of a whole jump. And if you try to do a regular jump, you fall. Anyway, I really enjoyed this game. Does anybody else have any thoughts on this title?
No, again, it was one of those games you could switch characters like you see in the gameplay, like right in the middle of what you're doing. If you found that you needed this weapon for this instance, you could change. So you started to see games becoming, interchangeable, I guess is what I'm looking for.
Yep, and it would let you pick a play style,
Just another classic NES game, man. That's just, just brings back memories.
Yeah, it's amazing how long the NES was out, without needing a new console.
That is an interesting topic to have, actually, because the Nintendo in Japan had like a 10-year run.
This cheater.
before the Super Nintendo came out. I think it was an 8 or 7 year run here. But then again, you know, it depends on everybody and their age. Like I had Nintendo probably 5 years longer than I should have. I should have probably got a Super Nintendo.
It came out in 85. I think I got it in 86, and I probably still played it until like 92. SNES came out like 92, 93. Am I right on that?
Yeah, it sounds about right.
Yeah, you're right.
So
it sounds about right.
Long time, and then NES wasn't out very long, and then you know we're changing. Then you got Genesis, and you know just more and more and more. I mean that a lot of those games were 95. That's when you started hearing about the SNES, I guess. So 3 years. 3 years for that one. That's not long.
Yeah.
And then the 64 came out, and that was
96.
Like their last hurrah with cartridge-based games, you know. Yeah. But that is a system though that I appreciated beyond any other when it came out, because right in your face it said, "Hey, go get some friends," because there's 3 other controllers here, you know.
What the weirdest controller, but I actually loved that controller.
Controller was amazing.
Yeah, I like the controller.
I like to call it the Starfish.
In fact, you didn't have a right joystick that you used those yellow buttons.
Dude, if you look at your new gen controllers and you go look at a 64, you got the bumpers, the analog sticks, you know, you got your up down whatever left right button.
Yeah, Z buttons, things like that.
I mean,
Nintendo's paved the way for a long time, and I mean I know
and a Rumble Pack. Don't forget the Rumble Pack, y'all.
Yeah. They're getting a lot of hate for you know only coming out with that OLED model Switch, but you know the people are only upset with them because they expect more. Nobody's doing what they're doing still, even with OLED. So
spent many nights playing GoldenEye with.
Yeah, man. Nintendo's been a love affair of mine ever since the 64. And like I always got into my friends and I would talk about 16-bit versus 8-bit and all that crap. But until I saw Mario 64 and all of its 3D glory going all the way around Mario and into the paintings and stuff, I was hooked, man. I thought, wow, this is the future. I can't believe things are going to get better than this.
I mean, who at Nintendo was sitting in a room when they brought out the Wii U and they were like, "Oh my God, we have gold here. Let's make the Switch." Like nobody else has even tried to do anything like it. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But I guess that speaks volumes to the mobile gaming scene too, because now with all these controllers that you can turn your phone into, Switch. So.
Well, and I something that I wouldn't have thought possible either, that a thumb drive with 1 gig can hold the entire NES collection 3 times over, like, or whatever, because the games are kilobytes, you know.
Look at the games now. Holy cow.
Yeah, man. And
how many games there are for NES? Does anybody know that?
There's like 900 or something. I mean, they've literally got A to Z and numbers. Like, they've got a lot of games. A lot. And there was even more in Japan or whatever.
That's true. There's always games that aren't released here.
Yeah.
And some did get released over here with a totally different name.
I remember this part.
I hate now I'm getting mad at throwing my controller and just like the hell with it. I give up.
Yeah, that's what Hell Monkey was talking about, wanting to get pissed off at this part, man. Because
seaweed,
because it was hard. I mean, you couldn't barely get hit at all.
I know I wasn't the only one that did it with the NES controller, where you try doing like this to make your character jump instead of just pushing the button, and the cord is like flapping up and down.
That's so funny.
Like the Wii ended up being. You were before your time, so yeah.
I still do that just now when I'm playing. You can't help it, man. Video games are so immersive in that way that you just find yourself naturally doing these things because it helps. Sticking your tongue, it helps as well.
I rewatched my last live stream of Siege, and I look like a meth addict. My eyes are like, oh man, they were bouncing back and forth. I was like, ooh.
I'm starting to worry about you. You always go to the meth addict line. Like,
no comment.
nothing else works with your okay, Coke. Your eyes darting around. I don't know. I don't know the reference, but anyway.
Mega Man's voice was a meth addict.
No, I said crack.
Oh, you did say crack. Okay, all right.
I
Fair
diversified.
Enough.
Oh man, but yeah, I enjoyed this game.
Definitely.
You know, it was very, very, very hard in my childhood. I threw my controller a bunch. You would finally get to like where you hadn't been before, but you just barely made it there, so you died like 3 minutes after. You know, that type of stuff was always a little rough. But so real quick before we go and we let you guys give yourselves a shout out on what you've been doing or what you will be doing. What is the one game you anticipated like a lot, and when you finally turned it on, you didn't like it? Starting with you, Hell Monkey.
That's a really easy one, and it answers Sierra's question as well in the chat for the most disliked RPG, and that would be Cyberpunk. I could not believe it, man. I bought the guide and everything. The first game I've bought the guide for, and like since you could buy magazines with, you know, walkthroughs and whatnot of games, you know, like Tomb Raider, etc. for the PlayStation. I got in the hype. I was watching all the lore, reading up about all the lore, and the game came and it was absolutely nothing like what they said it was. And someone actually made a very interesting video. I don't know who it was, but it just popped up on my YouTube. It was comparing Far Cry 5 and Cyberpunk, you know, to do with the visuals and the graphics and the NPC interaction and everything. Mm-hmm. And Far Cry 5 absolutely rinses Cyberpunk, like from shooting along the water and things, you know, the bullet effects, the ripples, you know, they're all minor things, but Cyberpunk was supposed to be this big next gen game, and it just failed so bad. It
was like back to the hype conversation about Final Fantasy VII. The hype for that was just as powerful, but the game was really good when it came out.
Yeah.
Sadly for Cyberpunk, it that wasn't the case, you know.
No. So what I need to do now is actually to go and play Far Cry 5 because I haven't played it because it's better than Cyberpunk. I got to number 3 and then sort of I'm so bad for not finishing games because there's another game coming in. I just jump straight on to it, and I don't go back, but I definitely need to go back and play them now.
Yeah, definitely play 5 because the main characters or the villains are fantastic, and it really gets you in the mindset of these people have to be put down. Like it's really interesting. Yeah. It's really interesting. How about you, Chris? Any title that you really anticipated and we finally got your hands on it? You were like, meh.
It would have been none up until about a year ago, where I never played Xenoblade Chronicles 1, but Xenoblade Chronicles 2 came out for the Switch, and that had very high expectations. And from what I understand, everyone who liked XC1 really enjoyed XC2, but I just could not get into the battle system. And as like a typical JRPG, like you're spending the majority of your time battling, and it had this very kind of novel. They took risks with the battle system, and anytime an RPG kind of leaves the comfort zone and tries a new thing with the battle system, you're going to get a spectrum of responses, and just like there's a ton of like auto attacking, and then like later on, like the difficulty level like skyrockets, and you go from basically doing like almost nothing to basically doing like a million things. And I got a lot of, well, if you just play like for like 15 more hours, like then you'll, because some games are slow to start.
True.
But like I gave it a fair shot like 3 or 4 times. And I could, for me personally, completely, I just could not get to the part where I started enjoying the combat. Like the graphics are beautiful. The story was really cool. There were a lot of really, really nice aspects to it. But for me, it happened to be, probably the only waste of whatever $60 or whatever that I've ever spent on a game.
Well, what a horrible thing though. Hey, buckle up and just wait another 15 hours and it'll get fun. Well, I got 15 hours to wait till it's fun. Holy shit.
Yeah. It's more frustrating than anything else. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be rough. How about you, Ryzak? Any game you really wanted, got your hands on it, and was
there's actually a couple. I don't know what you want to call the genre of game, so sorry to steer your question here. Anthem, Destiny, and what is that new one, Outriders, that just came out? Those games just aren't for me, man. I don't like going back to the same place, going to the same places,
doing the gear grind.
It's
or
just
whatever.
it's you go to this planet or you go to this ship or whatever, and then you got to go right back to the same area just with stronger people to fight, and nothing really changes except for their hit points, and they just don't do it for me. So I thought Anthem was a big.
Right on. And Outriders could go for some updates. Come on now.
Not on Stadia.
Yeah, that's what I mean. How about you, Ray? Any game you really, really wanted, got your hands on it, and was like, oh, this is trash?
Let me tell you, man, there was this game, and the cover just blew me away because I love werewolves and vampires, and it was called Vampire Reign. And it was a vampire stealth game, and it was hard as hell. You even try and walk, the vampires would kill you instantly. That's how hard the game was. I mean, you couldn't. You had to creep around the walls, and the vampires would kill you. And you would get far, and then if you got eaten or killed, you'd have to start all the way back, like way back. And it was just so effing frustrating. And that game just pissed me off. Vampire Reign.
How about you, Jeff?
It's an old PlayStation 3 game. I got it free. I forget how I got it. Called Demon Souls. Yeah, and I just couldn't get into it. I just tried several times, and I got it free, so I didn't really care. I forget why I got it free, but I did. And it was an old PlayStation 3 game, and and I think they were going to come out with a PlayStation 5 version. I don't know if it's any better, but I just had trouble playing it. I just couldn't figure it out. I played a few hours of it, and I just kind of gave up.
Well, I didn't purchase this game, and I didn't get it for a birthday or anything, but back in the day, we'd go to the rental store, and some of my weekends would consist of me renting one or two games and staying up way past my bedtime trying to play them and beat them. Matter of fact, I was a little fat kid, and my brother nicknamed me the Sega Buddha, because I would sit there and just beat a game. Like, I'd rent it and beat it. He's like, how the hell did you do that? Like, well, I guess I'm good at it. I don't know. But anyway, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde for the NES.
I remember that.
I rented that game and died on the first screen thousands of times.
Oh, no.
Never play that game again. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Check it out on NES sometime. Maybe it's a great game. I don't know, but I couldn't get past the first screen ever.
Okay, I want to reverse your question also, because I have a guilty pleasure game, one that did not get. It's my favorite RPG of all time. Obviously, N64 and RPGs don't exactly go hand in hand, but Quest 64 is a game that I've played every year since it came out, and it really betrays a lot of the expectations of what you'd expect an RPG to be. So a lot of people were unhappy because they assumed that this was going to be kind of the narrative, and Quest 64 either does things differently or really kind of falls flat in a lot of different ways. But that is my guilty pleasure number one RPG game that, if I can't say Final Fantasy 7 or 10, because I don't want to talk about the Final Fantasies, if we can't talk about Diablo 2, I'll talk about the failed RPG that is probably my favorite game of all time, Quest 64.
Well, you just inspired me. Now I'm going to have to look that up and check it out. I've never even heard of that game before.
Yeah.
Quest 64.
Yeah, Quest 64. It's called
You've heard of Quest 64?
I need to see the art.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
I'm sure I have, but
yeah, little boy who has a big hair piece up top, little cowlick or something. He's got a big yeah.
Okay.
It did a lot of things right. I had great music, had good draw distances. The combat I thought was fun, but it did not have all the elements of a typical conventional RPG. And there wasn't the level of customizability you'd expect. So you have 4 elements: fire, water, wind, and earth. But you soon figure out that you can't really do any build you want. You have to do the healing builds and the one that makes you invincible, because why wouldn't you? So why wouldn't you? There's a lot of silly things in there that you figure out the game, but without fail every year, I just play it through along with some other N64 games.
Well, I want to just thank both of you for making the time to come on Retro Rewind today. We had a fabulous episode. I really thank you guys very much. Starting with you, Hell Monkey, why don't you fill everybody in on where they can find you and what you may be up to?
Yeah, well, if anyone likes cloud gaming, like I imagine a lot of you do, I just cover the news and some gameplay over at Cloud Gaming Extreme, and Ace and Chief put all the the devices and the games through their paces, through their testing, and I get my nose in about all the news and take care of the website and that. So that's where you can find me. Other than that, if anyone ever wants to have any conversations about games, you'll find me on Twitter at hellmonkey88. And thank you very much for having me, by the way. This has been a blast with you guys talking about these old games. I want to go back and play them all, but I can't.
How about you, Chris? Where can people find you and find your project and everything? And
Yeah,
congratulations again on making your backing. That is fantastic.
Thank you.
Can I add one more thing for Chris?
Yeah.
Chris, thank you for being an educator, man. I appreciate that. My mom was a school teacher, and I just want to say thank you for your service to the kids and creating an awesome game, and I can't wait to play it.
Those young minds,
I appreciate
young
that.
minds are the future, so thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, and thanks. Yeah, I mean, when I make all the problem solving and puzzle aspects and, trying to elicit those things, it's a matter of like, what would my students do, and trying to figure out what the perfect compromise is. If you make puzzles too hard, people give up. If you make them too easy, you don't really feel like you're achieving anything. So like, these are things that kind of have nice parallels between like being a gamer / creating a game and being an educator. So that's, I just love that aspect. I get to pull one of my passions into another one of my passions. So my game Mango Mischief is on Kickstarter for a few more days. The website Mango Mischief www.mangomischief.com will be up forever. My Twitter handle's at Mango Mischief. Instagram is Mango Mischief Video Game. You can get all of this just from the website alone. But yeah, I mean, I'm on summer break now, so before I jump into doing all my teaching and tutoring, I'll just be, grinding out the dungeons and the monsters and the play testing and the getting feedback and all the stuff, all the fun stuff that kind of goes into my little passion project here. And thank you guys for having me, and thank you, Hell Monkey, for being on here also. This was just really, really fun.
Yeah, it's always great talking about nostalgia and retro stuff. Go ahead, Ray. Where can people find you, and what have you been up to?
Well, tonight, guys, I'm going to be doing some xCloud gaming streaming. I'm going to do Wasteland 3. And then tomorrow I'm going to stream Judgment on Stadia. But you can catch me on Rock Reveal on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Cloud Station with Dr. Spaceman Vet. I think Vet is back, so I'm happy. And JD. And then, of course, guys, catch me every other Sunday with Retro Rewind with Jeff and SPG and whoever joins us. Thank you.
How about you, Jeff?
I'm Jeff Janak, as you can see. Got to be properly branded. You can find me all over the Twitters and the YouTubes and the Twitches. Mondays I stream Stadia games. Mondays and Wednesdays I stream Stadia games. Wednesdays tends to be Stadia and Creta and or something else. Friday nights, except this week, I'm going to be on vacation. But usually I do a retro stream on my console, PlayStation 1, 2, or 3. So I actually go console, dig out the consoles, and then eventually in season 2 or 3, I may go other, NES or N64 or something, get those back out there. I want to thank Chris for being here and Hell Monkey. Chris, I probably will support your Kickstarter at some point. I like the idea of building my own sort of Dallas Cowboy themed monster.
Hell no.
Yeah, I mean, I followed football in the night. They were my favorite team in the '90s when they won everything. But
that's the last time they won something was the '90s. That's the last time they were relevant was the
There
90s.
goes my Kickstarter contribution.
When was the last time? When was the last time the 49ers won anything, Ray?
Dude, all we gotta do, look, we got 6. We can hold up 6 fingers. How many can you hold?
Do you want to check those numbers again, Ray?
Wait a minute, I'm
You
sorry.
can do 6
5.
fingers on
Yeah,
one hand?
yeah.
5. Sorry,
Yeah.
5.
Are you
5.
from
Yeah.
the
No
South? Come on.
finger, I don't want to put up. But and Ryzak, thank you for being on the show, brother.
Yes, Ryzak,
Yes,
thank you.
sir.
Ryzak has
Thank
to
you.
go. Ryzak is streaming the summer gaming series.
I've
That's what
already
he
had to
thought.
start my stream right now,
That's
so
what he
I got
thought.
people in there asking me where the hell I am.
Ryzak, before you go, sir, where can people find you, and what are you doing?
Absolutely. I'm literally about to jump over and do another stream. I've been streaming since 8 o'clock this morning. So I wish this was my full-time job. This has been fun. But you can catch me Thursday nights. I host a Stadia trivia show called Game Over. We have our last second-round matchup this week. Jeff is going against Bryant Chappelle, who runs the Nerf Report. So we'll see who gets into the second round there. We also do a show, No Yes Men, Jeff and Anthony and I on Thursdays as well. And then I stream whenever I can. We'll also be doing a Minecraft EBCN stream, me and my son tonight. So anybody that has Minecraft Java, feel free to jump in. Chris, congratulations. Good luck with everything. Hell Monkey, it was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you for having me on the show today. It was fantastic, but I got to go. I'm sorry.
Thanks, Ryzak.
Thank you, guys. All right. We'll see you soon.
All right, Ryzak. Oh, man. A lot of fun, guys. All right. Well, of course, I'm William, a.k.a. SPG. You can find me Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays streaming from 12 to 2. And then every other Sunday right here at Retro Rewind. And I just want to thank the guests again. Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Hell Monkey, for coming on. It was a hell of a lot of fun. It certainly was. And I'm going to go ahead and hit the outro here, and we will all see you next time. Have a good day.
Take care.
Bye, guys.
Bye.